Guilty of the murder of Nimil, Sowell was in court on Friday to hear his sentence.
The court finds that the aggravating circumstances outweigh the mitigating factors beyond a reasonable doubt, and therefore finds that the sentence of death shall be imposed upon the defendant. Sowell.
That's a lot of shithole. I didn't have to fucking
I want the money. I want the money.
The judge ignored pleas from defense lawyers to take into account Sowell's mental health problems and previous service as a union relatives of the victims celebrated as the sentence was read out.
Fucking not that bitch. She fucking stayed with another geezer.
Transformed into a murder scene over the course of 2 years, beginning in 2000 in Westland. He apparently lured many of his victims here with the promise of their remains were dumped in rubbish sacks. Grisly's secret was only uncovered after police went to his home to investigate allegations of sexual assault and began finding Zidov. During his trial, he said he was truly sorry from the bottom of his heart. But the relative of one of his victims told reporters that Sowell was going to hell for his actions.
I was fucking the one that sorted it out.
It was a shithole when I walked in there. I went mad when I walked in there.
That's nothing to do with me. That's nothing to do with me.
Right, so who's going to pay the crack?
Okay, you're being treated out of your accident. You're acting like an asshole. You know what? This guy right there? This guy right there is doing his job. He's doing his job. He's doing his job.
No.
Yes.
Mr.
You're the one acting up.
You're a gentleman.
How much time you got? How much time you got?
Hey! You don't spit at officers.
Give me a spit, man. Give me a spit.
Dude, you think that was very good?
Where you are? How long are you going to be here? 5 o'clock, you come back in. When the last time you were here at night? No lullabies and Alcatraz,
Alright, 2 things. Wipe that fucking smirk from your fucking face. Second, tell me your fucking name. Answer me!
My name is 59066, and I have blood on my hands. Literally, I just stabbed someone. And as I sit in solitary, again, I can think of nothing but murder. Other than that, I'm a shell. I have no interests, no pursuits, no family and friends. I don't read, and music gives me a headache. To bathe in the warm life's blood, that's all I desire. And in prison, the thirst for blood can always be quenched. I wasn't always a murderer. I had a name once, a pretty wife, a career, a home. I wasn't a remarkable man by any stretch of the imagination, but steady, even, dependable. My wife knew I was faithful, and my job trusted me to count the register every night without putting the money in my pocket. And so life goes on with its complacent, mildly joyous monotony, day after day, year after year. There are exceptions, of course. Sometimes life throws a curveball at you, the size of a meteor, Did you know that it would only take a meteor of 6 square miles to sterilize Earth of all life?
Who gives a fuck? Just get to the fucking point.
It's a true fact. I heard it at the Pell County Museum of Science. You can look it up if you don't believe me. 6 square miles. The shockwave would kill anything and everything within 2,000 miles of the point of impact. And the earthquakes, fires, and boiling tidal surges would do the rest. Now, it stands to reason that this planet would have to harbor some type of new life, eventually. I didn't hear that part in the museum, though. But I do know that life on Earth originally came out of nowhere, so to speak. So this new life, this post-meteor life, would it be wholly different than the life forms that we know and study today?
I don't know.
And that's what happened to me, I guess.
I'm sure.
I got hit with a big old meteor right in my soul. And after my value system was sterilized, something else sprang up to replace it. My in-laws and neighbors were shocked at my imprisonment. At first. They sent me letters and cards and put money in my commissary until I decided to get my hands bloody. Then the letters stopped.
Shit. Of course they stopped. You're a fucking criminal. A monster. It's like you're dead inside.
I remember the day when I died inside. I was doing shift change at the liquor store. One of our new registers was down, so much for machines making our lives easier. And I was helping out a nervous clerk.
Doing what?
Count the cash in the other register.
Go on.
There was a line of potential drunks, practically out of the door, and some of them weren't very nice. The clerk was on the verge of panic. I told him to take a deep breath and concentrate on the cash. It was at that moment when a Pell trooper came in and looked me square in the face. You know, sometimes it's hard for me to remember what my own wife's face looked like, but I'll never forget this guy. He was big and imposing, with quick movements. There was something incredibly aggressive about his demeanor, though he didn't actually do anything hostile. Still, my heart went up to my throat when I looked at him. He was a machine, built for tackling and apprehending, and on occasion shooting folks. "Mr. Weiss?" "That's me," I said, giving what I thought was a genial smile under the circumstances. "Could you please step outside with me, sir?" Now my heart began to pound. He was going to arrest me. I just knew it. "Would you mind waiting a moment, officer? I'm just in the middle of completing a shift change." "Sure." He stepped on the end of my sentence, probably like he steps on people's faces, I thought. Looking back at it now, I can see that the seeds of my transformation were waiting to be sown long before the cataclysmic event. The hatred was there. I had just done a good job managing it. I returned to the register, but now it was my turn to be scatterbrained. Fortunately, the clerk was a fast study and got his register up and running. "That's right, folks. You'll be drinking 40s of OE by yourselves in no time. Remember to pee in the toilet and only in the toilet. Fucking degenerates." I accompanied the pig outside, and that was when he broke the news about my wife. She'd been carjacked, and although she'd complied, the perp had shot her twice in the head anyhow. They had him in custody. "Now that's the good news," said the pig. Then the rest faded out. I fell backwards against the plate glass storefront, sank to the sidewalk, and began to weep. I stopped going into work. I just couldn't keep up the routine anymore. The boss paid my bills and made sure I had groceries. The neighbors put up a fund to pay for my mortgage. Sympathy cards from well-wishers choked up my mailbox. I started throwing them in the fireplace. Every card was a reminder of my dead wife, the woman I had loved. I began to resent the well-wishers and stopped answering the door. "You want to make me feel better? Bring my wife back. You think you can swing that?" The killer got 7 years with 4 to serve. He pled it down to aggravated assault, death resulting. What the fuck was the world coming to? If this were 20 years ago, he'd be swinging from the nearest tree. It wasn't right. It wasn't fair. It was around this time that some of my energy began to return. I had the drive to leave the house again. But when I did, it wasn't to return to work. Instead, I visited the Pell County Correctional Institution. where my wife's killer was housed. I walked into the administrative offices and requested a job application. I took it home, filled it out, and mailed it in. About a week later, I received a call from a supervisor. Although my background check had come back clear, he'd recognized my name from the paper, and it wasn't hard for him to put two and two together. Excuse me. He spoke in a veiled manner that was both cautious and direct, so as to get his point across without ending up in trouble with HR. He questioned why a man with a solid work history running stores would want to become a corrections officer. He also expressed his sincere condolences for the loss of my wife. And that was all he said on the subject, but the message was clear. We'll review your application in a few months, Mr. Vice. Sure you will. Fucking prick. Never mind him, though. It was time for Plan B.
Would you care to elaborate on what the Plan B was?
The following morning, I paid a visit to the Pell County Bank. There were only 2 tellers working, and the lines were long.
Is that so?
I stood amongst the other customers, innocuous, the proverbial wolf in sheep's clothing. I listened to their chit-chat and gossip, tales of visiting with grandkids and attending high school graduations, and oh, how about this crazy weather we've been having? Can't wait till it gets warm so I can go swimming again in Osborne Sound. The banality of it all sickened me.
You sicken me. Go on, I'm listening.
We slowly shuffled, en masse, forward, like oblivious cows at a slaughterhouse. The transformation was already complete by that point, I think. When it was my turn to approach the teller, a ditzy girl fresh out of high school who probably made more than I did after 20 years at the liquor store, I walked up to her, flashed a grin, and passed her a note. I am strapped with a bomb. Give me all of your money or everyone dies. If she was scared, she didn't show it, though she didn't look so oblivious anymore. She reached into her drawer and pulled out a stack of notes. $6,200, I later learned in court. Tossed them in a plastic bag and passed them over to me. No one in line seemed to notice. I took the bag and walked over to a security guard, a big oaf texting on his phone. Got his attention, handed him the bag and said, "Today is your lucky day. You're a hero." The judge gave me 4 years with 2 to serve. I went with the public defender. He seemed competent enough and was pretty convinced that he could get me a suspended sentence on account of the trauma I suffered with my wife's death. But that would have gone contrary to my plans, so I fired him and represented myself. You know the old saying, a lawyer who represents himself has a fool for a client. But I was proud, excited, alive. I wasn't a fool. I was crazy, like a fox. I played everyone. Once I was locked up, my wife's killer wasn't hard to locate. I found him in the rec room and stabbed him in the neck while his boys looked on in stupefied amazement while he bled out all over the ping pong table like a stuck pig. After a few moments, a couple of them moved forward to intervene, but what they saw gave them pause. I had smelled the blood, you see, and became hungry. I drank the crimson ichor from this man's neck, accepting the pure nourishment of his life. A guard must have clubbed me in the head, and I came to in solitary confinement with a concussion. They gave me life. And life, Pell means 30 years, with the scant possibility of parole in 20. I didn't care. I was disruptive during the trial and was gagged. I shit myself in protest. The judge refused to let me represent myself on account of me being crazier than a shithouse rat, and assigned me the public defender. But I got life all the same. A couple of weeks in, my new cellmate requested a blowjob. He wouldn't take no for an answer. I bit his cock off and took my gift of crimson nourishment. I got 8 months of the hole and a consecutive life sentence, without the possibility of parole. I'm due to be released shortly before my 100th birthday. When I got out of the hole, I bit the neck open of a neo-Nazi who had cracked a joke at my expense. It was around this time that the Pell Parliament began debating the reinstatement of the death penalty. My name was mentioned on the floor many times. Sometimes, I stare up at the cracked concrete ceiling and I have the strangest thoughts.
That's enough. I heard enough. You know what? You're going under the jail. Fuck you.